Hey guys, today we're going to have a look at the Cube Controls SP-01 pedals. The most expensive pedal set I've tested so far on this channel. We'll talk about everything that I like and everything that I dislike. As always, the disclaimer, Cube Controls did send me these pedals to check out for the review. They do not get to see the script before the video is posted and all the opinions are my own. So the pedal set, as you can see it here, costs 1,099 euros plus taxes. There's also a formula version that comes with the carbon fiber pedal plate, which is 1,129 euros plus taxes. Additionally, you can get a performance kit that consists of a few elastomers and springs, which is 59.90 plus taxes. So overall, a really expensive pedal set we are reviewing today. Basic specs, we have a throttle pedal with a spring, no damper, and a brake pedal with tons of customizability and an adjustable damper on top. When I've been using these pedals on stream, something I hear very often is they are too expensive for being load cell. And I kind of want to address this point because I think the technology behind the pedals do not matter. But load cell pedals, in my opinion, mostly are a little bit better and require less maintenance. The only thing I do understand with this argument, hydraulic cylinders with pressure sensors are probably more expensive than the load cell, but then in the end you can buy hydraulic pedals for like 3,000 euros or so. These are expensive, but we will have a look how they perform and whether it's worth the money. So yeah, 1,099 euros for the cheapest version is a very high price, but you also get an insane piece of kit here. The pedals look amazing in my opinion. They have a very modern look to it and yeah, they will just look amazing on your rig. We will start with build quality, and build quality is amazing apart from a very few spots that we'll have a closer look at later. There are ball bearings on all the pivot points. There's absolutely zero flex. Even if you try really hard to get some play in the pedal arms, there's none. It's crazy rigid. Cube Control says it's an optimized FEM design to minimize flex, and yeah, I can definitely confirm that. The pedals are made out of CNC'd aluminum. 6061 and 7075 is being used here. The 7075 aluminum is the harder version of the two. I assume it's being used for the blue parts, like all the parts that have to withstand higher forces, but Cube Controls doesn't really give any information which parts are made out of what. But I personally think the 7075 aluminum is used on the parts that have to withstand higher forces. So overall, I think they just look very nice. The pedals will come with all the tools that you need to install them. Very handy in my opinion. And when you get the pedals, the first thing you need to do is install these side brackets. And there are 4 possible positions that you can do. All differ by 5 degrees, I think. I find the holes here on the back a little bit confusing. I mean, now the pedal face is pretty much perpendicular to the floor or to the pedal plate where you will mount the pedals. But you can adjust it like in this direction. I typically, if I adjust the angle, I adjust it in the different direction. But here you can go in this one. I mean, theoretically, you can put the brackets the other way on here, probably. And then you could get the adjustment in the other direction. But this is not how it's meant to be done from Cube Control. So I put it in the lowest position and then adjust the angle with my pedal plate on the rig instead. The die-cast pedal faces here can be adjusted in height in 4 fixed positions. And if you get the formula version with the carbon fiber plate, you get 2 positions. But this carbon fiber pedal face is so big, I don't really think you need the height adjustment there. But yeah, I think we will start with a closer look at the throttle pedal. So depending on whether you get the GT version, you get this pedal face, or you get the carbon fiber pedal face. I personally can highly recommend the GT version. I've not been a huge fan of the carbon fiber one. I mean, it does feel good. The bigger area, especially if you drive without shoes, feels nice. But the problem are these countersunk recessed holes. They are really sharp around the edges and it will just destroy your shoes or your socks. So if they could smoothen that out a little bit, I think that would be good. But I would just recommend to go with the aluminum version. The position of the pedal arm is measured by a hall sensor. I think one of the best ways to measure the position on throttle and clutches. There will be no wear with the hall sensor and it's very accurate and quick. Then on the main shaft we have some sort of coating. It kind of reminds me of the coating you see in shocks for mountain bikes, for example. But according to Cube Controls, it is to reduce wear on this shaft. The preload, and by that the stiffness of the throttle pedal, can be adjusted by the screw in the front here. Very nice, super easy to reach. Take out the preload for a softer pedal and increase the preload if you want a heavier pedal. You can adjust this from relatively light to pretty substantial resistance. I think everybody will find a setting here they will like. The pedal travel is adjustable by this blue knob here. So you can reduce the travel by going into this direction, then you have less throw overall. There's a spacer in here. Let's quickly take out the rod. that you can also remove if you want insanely long travel. It can pretty much go from very short throw to a throw that is, I mean, let's put it to the setting here, which is pretty ridiculous. I mean, look at this. Everybody will find something that works for them. Then the shaft is sliding in this self-lubricating nylon sleeve thingy. And while in theory, I think it's a good idea, the tolerance of this is not ideal. You can see here that they carved it slightly, I guess manually by hand. It definitely looks like it. Not a good look for a pedal set that is that expensive, but I think they did that to increase the resistance of this sleeve in the end stop. But still, for me, I had the problem that sometimes when I was driving, this would slide out and then it would feel very, very strange when you go on the throttle again. And this is something that I think Cube Controls needs to address, maybe put in 2 grub screws or something to hold it in place. You can fix it relatively easy by making the nylon sleeve thicker, by, for example, putting on a slight layer of tape, but still at this price point, I think this should not happen. Then also on the throttle pedal, the electronics are embedded in the bottom here. So this connects to the PC and connects to the other pedals. I think that's a very clever design choice. Gives you also some shielding for the electronics. Very good. Overall, the throttle is a very good throttle. Modulation is absolutely no problem. And adjustability is sufficient in my opinion. The only thing that Cube Controls needs to adjust is the tolerance of this nylon sleeve. Okay, next we'll have a closer look at the brake. The brake will always have this aluminum pedal face. It is very comfortable both with shoes and with socks. Like I said, I can recommend to just get the GT version to have this on the throttle as well. You can put it either like this or upside down. I put it in the other direction than the throttle. I think that looks better, but it performs well in both positions, to be honest. We do have a load cell here in the back. It's probably the typical Mavin 200 kilogram load cell. I didn't have a look. They say it's a 200 kilogram load cell. They do not specify the maximum pressure that you can put on the pedal face, but I personally was not able to max this brake out. So I think there's definitely enough headroom of pedal force for everyone. Then you also get a hydraulic damper labeled with the SP-01 here. And according to the Cube Controls website, this has 8 positions. But if you look closely, it's got the numbers 1 to 6 written on it. And if you actually count the steps, it's 16. So that was a little bit confusing, not a big deal, but yeah. The damper does add some nice feeling to the brake. I liked it in the setting between 2 and 3, like the written numbers 2 and 3. And it just makes the brake feel a bit smoother. I feel like the trail braking performance is slightly better, less jittery, if you want to put it like that. I think it's a nice addition. And I always thought dampers on brake don't make too much sense because you probably won't feel it at these pressures, but I can admit I'm wrong. This feels very nice and you definitely feel the difference between the lowest and the highest setting. If I take out all the preload here, then we'll have quite some slack on the pedal. And you can see here, this is the damper on the highest setting. It will make the brake very, very slow. It's extra slow here because we don't have any force from the elastomer stack coming towards the pedal arm, only from the preload spring here. But if I put it to the lowest setting, you will see now it's really quick and the damping effect is rather small. Let's put it in the setting that I like. You feel it, but it's not insanely stiff here. But yeah, talking of reducing preload, this blue knob here is a little problematic in my opinion, because if you add tons of preload, it's probably fine, but I don't like that on the brake. I always drive rather small preload, so I get some initial travel here when I put low forces on the brake. And in that setting, the blue knob will unscrew itself. So a typical stream, 4 hours, I will start with the preload adjusted to my liking, and at the end of the stream, the screw will have unscrewed itself and there's slack on the stack. This should not happen, and I think Cube Controls should find a way to fix this. What I have done is I remove, let's actually take this out, and then I can show you. So what I've been doing is take out the blue knob here, add an extra spacer on the spring, and then just use 2 nuts to add the preload, and then being able to properly tighten it down and have the second nut to lock the first nut into place. And then I did not have that issue anymore. But with this design, I had some issues. Like I said, it might not be a problem for you if you run super high preload, but if you run low preload, at least on this unit, this would unscrew itself. So maybe Cube Controls can make a lower profile version of this and then add a second one that will hold this one in place. On most pedal sets, if you have preload adjustments, you will always have 2 screws to adjust it. And yeah, this is something where I think the design can be improved. Let's put it back together. By the way, if you want to exchange the elastomers, it's relatively easy. You can take out the whole unit here and then put it back together. Let's add the giant blue knob. If you do get these pedals, I would highly recommend you get the performance kit as well. I think at that price, the content of the performance kit should maybe be included. If you pre-ordered these, you did get the performance kit for free pretty much, but now it's 60 euros. But it makes the pedals much nicer in my opinion. You do get 3 different strength additional elastomers. You get 3 different strength of springs. And then you also get 2 of these little cups. This one is labeled with hard. And then the one that I have installed on my pedal set right now is labeled soft. The springs pretty much come with an integrated 2-stage design. They feel very linear. I really like springs for sim racing pedals. If you compress it to the limit, then it will just like be metal on metal contact, and it will not give you more travel, but it will give you still more pressure. And since it's a load cell, it will still register that. And then the elastomers can be installed like this, or you can put them in a little cup and then put it on the stack. And what the cup is doing, it limits the compression of the elastomer. The first advantage is you will not compress the elastomer over its specification and possibly damage it. And the second advantage is it's pretty much like a 2-stage design as well, because once it compresses so much that it will hit the cup, then it will stop compressing. And the transition between the softer and the harder stage is actually not abrupt in this case here, which feels very good, but it's more like you have a softer stage and then a very hard stage, but you can still feel a little more travel going on. The hard cup is a little tighter and will allow less compression of the elastomer. The soft cup has a little more space. I really like the combo that I like a lot is the blue spring, that is the hardest spring, together with the medium red elastomer in the soft cup. That feels insanely good, really. Also kind of similar to the throttle pedal, you have an additional preload spring in the pedal arm. So the adjustability on these pedals is insane. I left the preload of this one pretty much in the default position. You can, if you want to test it out, then take out all the damping, take out all the preload here, and then see how much force you need to push it till the elastomer stack gets compressed. You could also, in theory, use this as a third compression stage or whatever you want to call it. But the problem is the blue nut will not stay in place at all like this. So if you don't mind a lot of preload, I think this design is fine. If you do, maybe replace this giant blue knob with 2 nuts and a washer. So to sum it up, the customizability you get here is 3 different elastomer strength, 3 different spring strength, 2 cups to reduce the compression of the elastomer, 16 settings for the damper, preload for the elastomer or spring stack, and preload for the pedal arm. So if you can't find a setting that works for you with this brake, then the problem is not the pedal set. Let's put it like that. The customizability on this is absolutely insane. There are so many different combinations. Yeah, it's crazy. This definitely is the brake pedal with the craziest amount of customizability that I've tried so far. And I've tried pedals like the SimGrade R7 that also offer tons of stuff, but they don't have damping, and this is crazy. If you want something to just put on the rig, not worry about it. This will still work for you. They have some templates on their website of settings that work very well. But you can absolutely go down the rabbit hole and tweak this thing to your liking. And the cable coming out of the back here directly connects to the throttle. The cable is relatively short, but they do give you an extension cable that you can just plug in here. And then, yeah, it's long enough. I already said it, but I think for the price, they should include the performance kit, but yeah, I'm not making the prices. So overall, the brake pedal definitely is the most customizable brake that I have ever seen in any pedal set. The amount of options is absolutely ridiculous. The damper adds a nice feeling to the brake. Really, really like that. All right, let's talk about the clutch pedal. Well, as of now, there's no clutch pedal that you can buy it. I assume there will be a clutch pedal later. The throttle pedal has an additional connector for clutch, but as of now, no clutch is available. The electronics embedded in the throttle pedals Looks very clean. I tried to take out the PCB, but I was not able to completely unassemble the pedal. And I didn't want to start putting raw forces on it because it's just so pretty. I didn't want to destroy the pedal by any chance. So I was able to remove this cover here, and I had a quick look at the internals, tried to grab some footage with the iPhone. Not the prettiest, but you see what's being used here. We do have a CH571F processor. I think it's like a Chinese version of the STM32, but I'm not exactly sure. Works very well. Then we have 3 HX717 ADCs. This is a very low-cost 24-bit ADC, runs at 320 Hz maximum sampling rate and still gets an effective resolution of 16-bit roundabout. It is a very cost-effective design in here, but it works very well, so nothing to complain about. The noise performance of the pedals is not excellent, but definitely in the upper midfield. Then, thank you, Cube Controls. We have a USB-C connector in the back. I don't understand how these days there's still gear being released that is not USB-C. But yeah, for the software, I will hop into the rig, show you the calibration and the custom curves and stuff you can do there. But let's hop into the rig. All right, so software. First of all, if you cannot move this window and you cannot move these sliders, there's a little bug in the software. If I launch it on triple screens, I can't move the window, I can't move the sliders. To fix it, go to display settings and just make a different monitor your main monitor. For example, if I do this, make this my main monitor and then go back to the middle one, then it will start working. I don't know why, but it's a bug. I'm sure they will fix it eventually. But yeah, this is the main page. It shows you the inputs and you can adjust the dead zones. I typically run very low dead zones, 1% on the brake, typically to just get rid of that noise here on the bottom. I would recommend to have a little bit of dead zone at the beginning and at the end, just if there's some drift happening on the signal or so, that you still get 100% output. Calibration tab, very simple. You click it. You do your minimum maximum, same for the brake. I wish it would show some values, some raw values, what we are using while calibration, because if you change something on the brake, you obviously have to recalibrate, and every time you just have to guess what maximum brake pressure you were using before in the calibration. And I find it sometimes hard to do this just by feeling. It helps me if I see the raw values that I'm using for calibration, or just maybe give it an input as well, where you can calibrate it manually without doing this. But yeah, it's fine. One thing to be aware, if you run the custom curve here, you can't see it because another bug, the drop-down menu will appear on the left monitor. This is what I typically run on my brake. So slightly logarithmic, helps me with trail braking. The problem is, if you go to calibration now and you're on this custom curve, if you calibrate, it will just not work. It will show something, but you can see the raw values are higher. If I click save, then it will just not work. This is another bug. Keep in mind, set it to default, to the linear one, then do the calibration, and then you can change it back to logarithmic, and then you still get the values. And you see, now I calibrated it, and it will still have like 800 of raw value at the bottom. So I have to add some dead zone to get rid of that. I wish there was a way to manually calibrate it, but there isn't at the moment. But yeah, for the profiles, you can do 5 points in between 0 and 100. Interestingly, you cannot cap the brake to 80% or something, for example, because the last step is fixed at 100. This is probably something that a lot of people will miss here, so maybe something that Cube Controls can add in a firmware update. I don't really recommend doing stuff like that on a pedal set like this, because you have all the power available in the world. Train your muscle memory, but if you want to cap it, you can't with the software. So keep that in mind. Not possible with these. But that's pretty much it for the software. It's a basic software that can do most of the stuff that you need. But I would say we'll quickly hop on track. I'll talk a little bit about the feeling of the pedals, and then we'll go to the verdict. All right, here we go. We're on the Honda NSX around Misano. Great combo. And here you can see I run a lot of travel on the throttle pedal. More than I typically do. Just seeing if that is beneficial for me. So far I like it, but let's see if I go back to the shorter throw or not. And then, one thing I have to say is these Cube Controls socks are insanely comfortable, because they have padding in the heel area where your heel will hit the pedal plate. And typically, if I drive for like 4 or 5 hours, my heels hurt. With these socks, it's perfectly fine, so I can definitely recommend these socks. But yeah, about the pedals, throttle, no problem to modulate. And same with the brake, it's a very, very smooth feeling. Trail braking is not really a problem. As you can see here in that trail off, very nice looking curve. And overall, the settings, as I mentioned, there's some crazy customizability on the brake. I think everybody will find a setting that works very well. If you can't, then it's not the pedal's fault. It's highly adjustable. And you can see on the pedal cam for me, I run long travel. On the throttle, I run medium travel. On the brake here, you cannot go absolutely crazy long travel on these pedals. You can maybe go like a little more than twice the amount that I have here right now. But it's like a medium in between way that works very well for me. Oh, wow, this feels very different now. And I do run quite a bit of damping on the brake. I find that very beneficial in the trail braking phase. Just helps you, it basically evens out the response a little bit, if that makes sense. It helps me while driving. Definitely recommend to play around with the setting. I think Cube Control said they recommend setting till 2 or 3 on that dial. Whether that is like 2 or 3 on the 8 settings they say the pedals have, or from the 6 settings the pedals say, or the 16 settings the pedals actually have. Who knows? But try around, go to the extremes, go to the lowest setting, go to the highest setting, see how that feels. I always recommend don't listen too much what others use, because it is such a personal thing. There are people who like pushing a brick wall. I can't drive like that, but many people like it. Always play around with that and see what works the best for you. I mean, if you want to know my settings, like I said earlier, that medium elastomere with the cup and the hardest spring works very well for me. Try that as a starting point. But don't be afraid to experiment. It's easy to exchange everything on these pedals. And yeah. But yeah, the pedals feel very nice. You still get the sensitivity if I just rest my foot on it very slightly. I forget to brake. Right. We get the inputs here. You can calibrate this out by increasing the dead zone, no problem. If you like resting your foot without getting any inputs, you can do that. I have the brake typically very, very sensitive in the lower area, so resting gives about 10% input or so. And you can definitely do it with these pedals. I think something like the VRS is even more sensitive in that area, not regarding how much percentage of brake it will put out, but there you can set up the VRS to have some more travel when you just rest the foot on the pedal face. Here you definitely need a little higher force to be able to move the pedal. But then again, I haven't really played with the preload of that pedal arm spring thingy, so you can probably get more sensitivity out of these. But I really liked it, how it felt in this default position, so I didn't want to change it. And yeah, you can see, if you look at the brake graph here, the trail braking looks very nice. The logarithmic curves helps regarding that, because my issue always is that I drop off the brake too quickly, and if you add a slight logarithmic curve to it, that helps to counter this bad habit. Try it out. But overall, I've been very pleasantly surprised is the wrong word here. I mean, these are expensive pedals, they better be good. But they are very good, and if I only could use these pedals for the rest of my life, I would be perfectly happy. I don't think there's any other pedal set that gives you that amount of customizability, so yeah, I think Cube Controls did a good job here. Also love how it kind of looks a little bit like from Star Wars. If you look at the pedal camera. What are these Star Wars planes called? TIE fighters? I've never watched Star Wars in my life. Yeah, I know. Give me all your hate in the comments. But somebody in chat once mentioned that and now I can't unsee it. But yeah, from track, they perform very well. They are highly adjustable and yeah, thumbs up from me. Alright, verdict. So this is a really good pedal set at a really high price. They look absolutely amazing. I mean, just look at this construction, so cool. I really dig the looks. Would be even prettier in purple, of course. But blue is Cube Control's brand color, so it makes sense here. The pedals also feel very good. I think the two issues that I mentioned with that nylon sleeve and the preload knob should be addressed by Cube Controls, but it should not be a very hard fix, to be honest. The throttle has all the adjustability that you need. Maybe a damper here would also be cool, but to be honest, if you have enough resistance available on a pedal, I think at the throttle you don't really need a damper. The brake also definitely is in the top 5 of brakes that I have ever tested, and the adjustability is just crazy. I think in the end, adjustability really is the most important thing if you're not worried about spending several hours to find your perfect settings. Because in the end, what you do with the brake is you put pressure on the pedal face and want to be able to hit your threshold braking points and the trail braking as reliable and repeatable as possible. And that's only possible if you have a brake where you don't have to actively think about what you're doing, but more like where everything is in muscle memory. And I think especially the design with several stages helps a lot. I typically set up my brake in a way that when the pedal gets significantly harder, I am at about 80% brake pressure. And that way I can train my muscle memory to always brake as much till we hit that point and then trail off. Or in panic braking scenarios, you can go over that. And that's how you get consistent. People always ask me, how can you drive different pedal sets every week and still be relatively quick? And that's the key. You need to set them up in a similar way. Also between games, for example, I do iRacing, I do ACC. I typically set it up that the pressure I need in iRacing maps to about 80% pedal output. And then I just set this point, the power that I need to put on the brake, to be at about 100% for ACC. And then the two games actually don't feel too different. But yeah, Cube Controls, please check the tolerance on that sleeve. Fix the preload knob, and then this will be an insanely good pedal set. And also like the tiny issues in the software, it's software, it should be easy to fix. Just please do it, because apart from that, these pedals have been really excellent, and I definitely would be happy to put these on the rig and use them forever. So yeah, if you have any questions about the pedals, put them in the comments down below. If you liked the video, give it a thumbs up, maybe subscribe to the channel to not miss any future videos. And yeah, thanks a lot for watching, and I hope to see you all in the next one. Bye bye.